a lot of these issues or compete for licensures. I think your point is well taken. Senator Paul?
I think Mr. Edwards makes a good point. You know, one of the examples they often use is for hair braiding. They're often immigrants to our country, many from Africa or Jamaica, and states put them out of business with $1,500 licensure, and you got to go 2 years to learn how to braid hair. And it's like, really, you think the customer can't decide whether you can braid hair well or not? And but that runs throughout our economy. A lot of those are state laws, but there have been some good groups. Institute for Justice has fought a lot of these cases over time, and has won quite a few of them. But absolutely, regulations, when you think about it, the richer I am, the more I can evade a regulation. In fact, people talk about it as rent seeking. So the big corporations love regulation often. They come to us. They don't want the craft brewers, so the big people come to us. They're all for regulating the small guy out of business. But I think too often we don't look at how regulations, removing them, would actually disproportionately help lower wage, and people have historically had more trouble getting loans. Mr. Hendricks, on the often capitalism is sort of described as a creative destruction, that to get a loan, to stay in business, only the best survive. I mean, it really is this strong sort of, you have to make a profit. And there's a definite difference between sort of a government extending a loan and a private entity extending a loan, and that private entity, if they keep making mistakes, won't have any more money to loan. The government seems to have an infinite amount. Can you describe that a little bit, the difference between private and public loans, and how one may breed more excellence or better results?
The private sector is built around finding the right sort of businesses to invest in and finding the right partners to help grow the economy, to grow those businesses, to serve customers. And banks, financial institutions, community institutions, they are best placed to do that. The government has certainly extended help to many businesses over the years, but their track record of finding winners, good businesses, ones that will stay afloat, is spotty at best. And they also don't have a clear mission of what sort of businesses they're supposed to serve. It's sort of all over the place. It's scattershot. So what we should be doing is helping the businesses that do exist, the banks that do exist, the community institutions that are built to serve their neighbors, helping them to do their job rather than competing with them when we know our track record is not good.
Same question, Mr. Edwards, and any kind of disadvantages to leaving this role to government as far as other businesses that don't get funded?
One thing I'm worried about, with all of these issues is government crowd out. When the government enters an area, they tend to push out, private sector solutions. And I think with the SBA loan guarantees, either they're just replacing stuff that the private sector generally would have done itself, or they're extending loans probably to people that maybe shouldn't get the loans. We saw that with the housing crisis over a decade ago. So as Michael said, the private sector lenders want to lend. That's how they earn a return. And I went into detail about in my written testimony about angel investors. There's 300,000 of them out there in America, in every town and city. They are looking for young entrepreneurs to invest in, and they will invest, and they will hold their investment for 5 or 10 years, waiting patiently for returns. It's a very risky business, and so it's fantastic. It seems to me that a lot of wealthy people do this very high-risk investment, take these chances on unknown entrepreneurs.
When there's a feedback loop, you get information and you make decisions based on the information. Are they profitable? Did I make a mistake here? Did I do a good investment or a bad investment? You give more to the good investments, you give less to the bad investment. That doesn't exist in government. And so that's sort of the problem. I mean, government can do the wrong thing for decades. I mean, I remember William Proxmire talking about them spending $50,000 on a study to see what makes people happy. That was 50 years ago. Congress just funded a study last year wanting to know if you take selfies and look at the selfie of yourself smiling, if that makes you happy. We've been doing it for 70 years. The learning curve is really steep around here. Ms. Cox, I appreciate you putting forward some of the legal impediments that did exist for women at one time. And I think it's important to remember that both with gender and race, there were legal impediments to people in business. I think, unfortunately, as we've removed those, people keep thinking something else has to be done, something else has to be done. But are you aware of a legal or systemic bias against women in business that currently exists?
No, I'm not aware of any bias that currently exists. If there is any bias, it's in our favor. I continue to see women get elevated as if we need special favors from the government or we need help. Again, we don't need special favors. We don't need government to give us money. We need the same thing as male entrepreneurs. We need them to get out of our way so that we can compete and actually live in a meritocracy. I'm a strong believer in capitalism, but we have a problem where a certain number of entrepreneurs, a certain number of businesses are expected to actually compete in the market. And then others get bailouts from the government. Others get regulatory insulation from competitors. And then some get special handouts like we see under these SBA grants. And I think that's offensive. And I think Americans are increasingly fed up with that system where their tax dollars are taken from them and given to others. That's not a society that will stand for long.
You know, I think if you talk to many women in corporate America or African Americans in corporate America, you actually find that even without government telling the businesses what to do, businesses are actually very eager to advance African Americans who are in the business place as well as women. And I think we get stuck in statistics, you know, of how many CEOs there are, this or that. But really, as far as impediments, I don't think there are legal impediments. And so I really think if you wanted to make the loan program more efficient, you just wouldn't have women's centers at all. Just judge people. We could have human business centers, you know. I mean, I don't think I think it's demeaning actually to women or people of race to think somehow that you're inferior or incapable of doing exactly the same work. And so I think we're like 40 years beyond the time when we should be judging people on the color of their skin or their gender. We really should be, you know, proud of judging people equally before the law, you know, equality before the law. But I appreciate you all coming today, and that's all the questions I have.
Thank you. I want to ask one additional question, if I might. In response to the resource partners reaching out to disadvantaged communities, you've mentioned, at least one or two of you, the partnerships with HBCUs. We have women's business centers located at HBCUs. We have in the other programs direct partnerships with HBCUs. In Maryland, we have 4 HBCUs that are all involved in entrepreneurship programs in order to expose their students to the opportunities of entrepreneurship. So I want to just hear from you briefly, if I might, how relevant or important it is to utilize the HBCUs in trying to carry out your missions of entrepreneurship. Again, I'll start off with Mr. Rowe.
I think it's absolutely essential. We work with, I think, what did I say, 21 different HBCUs in 14 different states. They're a valuable part of our effort to make sure that we're fulfilling our statutory mission, which is to serve everyone in the state or region that the SBDC is assisting. And the HBCUs are a valuable tool for us in part of what we do, which is pedagogy on entrepreneurship. We are working regularly with programs, for example, in Alaska, K through 12, just to teach kids about having a business, what it means. So we think it's absolutely essential to work with the HBCUs.
Ms. Hodges, I know that Morgan State University has an entrepreneurship center and recently coupled that with the Women's Business Center.
Yes, sir. That makes 6 now, women's business centers located on historically black college and university campuses. We find it's incredibly important for women's business centers to be available everywhere potential businesses are, inclusive of places like HBCUs and minority-serving institutions. We just really need to be accessible and available to all women entrepreneurs, especially minority groups. Mentioned the 3 that had opened previously, and we'd like to see continued growth in that area in the future.
Thank you. Ms. Weston?
SCORE has recently formed a relationship with Tougaloo Foundation, Research and Development Foundation, which is a collaboration of HBCUs across the country. We're working with them to make sure that HBCUs have access to SCORE mentors and our educational materials regardless of where they are in the country. Many of the local HBCUs do partner with our SCORE chapters and have used our educational materials and courses, as well as helped us be an avenue to let people know about the mentors and resources that SCORE brings to these, to anyone looking to start or grow a small business.
Thank you. Senator Paul. Well, once again, let me thank our witnesses. I think your testimony will help us as we move forward in regards to legislative oversight and action. So with that, the committee will stand adjourned with our thanks.